You're listening to the LDR News Hour on Lake District Radio.
You certainly are. Well, it looks like it's going to be another scorcher this weekend with temperatures in the high 80s. Great news, you might think. But if you live in the Lake District, you can be forgiven for doing a rain dance, because if this weekend is like last weekend, it's going to be absolute chaos. According to a report in one of our newspapers today, hordes of visitors descending on the national park last weekend resulted in gridlock thanks to inconsiderate fly parking in narrow roads. Bus services were abandoned, ambulances and mountain rescue teams couldn't get through, and to make matters worse, residents were left to deal with mountains of litter and even human excrement left behind by day trippers. And one of those unfortunate residents is Becx Carter, who's a professional parish council clerk and a resident of Keswick. And she joins me now. Becx, the Borrowdale Valley sounds a bit like Sodom and Gomorrah last weekend. Was it really that bad?
It's the worst that I've ever seen it. I've lived in Keswick for 35 years and I've never seen anything like it in terms of the volume of visitors, the way that vehicles were parked, and just the lack of respect for the local and natural environment. The litter, the human waste, parking, as you've already alluded to, that was actually blocking roads to the point where vehicles couldn't use them. And actually in one instance on Saturday afternoon, it delayed the attendance of a Blue Light Emergency Services vehicle to an incident by nearly 20 minutes. Wow.
And I mean, I can imagine, you can accept the fact that people want to go to Keswick and Ambleside and towns like that, and there's plenty of parking for them to go there. But when they try and venture out further down the Borrowdale Valley and further afield, they come across narrow lanes. There's not a great deal of parking there. So is there any sympathy at all for these people who, they want to experience the area but they've got nowhere to park?
It's a really difficult balance. There is some parking within the Borrowdale Valley, the Newlands Valley, Crummock, Buttermere, etc. There is some parking if people park considerately. The problem is that you only need one person to think, oh, well, I can just squeeze my car on that little space at the end, and then somebody else comes and thinks, oh, well, it doesn't matter if I just squeeze on behind them, and thereby starts the problem.
Yeah.
We appreciate that people want to come here, and why wouldn't you? I'm sitting here looking out of my window, looking at the beautiful scenery. Why wouldn't you want to come and visit? It's just about having that little bit of forethought and doing a little bit more planning. There has now been a temporary car park opened up in Borrowdale, which hopefully will reduce some of the scenes that we saw last weekend. It's been opened under the 56-day planning rule that we've currently got due to the impacts of COVID. Mm-hmm. So hopefully if people use that, then that may mean that we don't end up with absolute gridlock like we had last weekend. It's a balance. We want to welcome people here. We are a tourist destination, and fundamentally tourism, underpins a lot of our economy. We just need tourists and visitors to think a little bit more considerately about if it was your mother, father, sister, brother who needed an ambulance or a fire engine, could they reasonably get through? And it might be a case of, you take your family somewhere, you drop them off with their picnic blankets and their chairs and everything, and then one of you, goes back a distance to park a vehicle safely and then walk back.
I mean, I know that there was... Allerdale police were out and about putting tickets on people's cars, but anecdotally I heard that for the cost of a parking of a penalty ticket, it's less than it would cost to park all day in one of these National Trust car parks. So they'll take the hit. I mean, is that's clearly a problem as well?
There is a bit of that. I will readily admit parking in Keswick is not the cheapest. Sadly, that's something that Allerdale Borough Council set the tariffs for that, and there is little that, as a local residents, we can do to alter that. The pop-up car parks tend to be more reasonably priced. The risk is that if you take that gamble around, well, I'll just have a ticket and pay it, there are two types of tickets. Well, there are actually three types of action the police can take. There are two types of tickets. One is your standard fine, which you pay your 30 or £35, I think it is, within 14 days, and that's it dealt with. The second one is your vehicle is actually causing an obstruction, and that's not just a penalty fine, that's actually 3 points on your driving licence as well.
Right.
So obviously that's a significantly greater gamble. The third option that the police have is if your vehicle is actually classed as being a danger, as in severely obstructing the highway to the point where it doesn't function, the police have the right to have your vehicle removed. Now, I imagine that probably is not the way that most people want to end their beautiful sunny day in the Lake District.
No, but I mean, that's the stick. But as with the best will in the world, people are still going to try it on. Do you think that there's a necessity for something a bit more sophisticated to be brought in terms of a parking strategy for the Lake Districts. I mean, I know that Snowdonia, for example, have got park and ride system whereby you park your car several miles away from the main mountains. The valleys are actually blocked off to traffic.
Yeah.
That you have buses and things going through on a regular basis, but the public can't go through. I mean, is it about time we had that in Borrowdale and Newlands Valley and places like that?
There certainly needs to be a more holistic view of the whole issue of tourism and how people move around the Lake District National Park, but you've obviously mentioned Snowdonia and other places, and it is something that the relevant authorities and organisations are looking into. But as I'm sure you can appreciate, if there was an easy answer, we would have done it long ago. Part of the issues is finding the places to put this volume of vehicles that then is accessible by public transport to mean that people can have the day that they want without it feeling too much of a chore. So there is a trial project going on at the moment between Cockermouth and Buttermere. There is now a free shuttle bus running from Cockermouth to Buttermere, and that'll run till the end of the summer holidays. To hopefully alleviate some of the similar issues. Buttermere has seen the same issues that Borrowdale has, Newlands has, Wasdale, Coniston, everyone's suffering the same problems. So that is now in place, and Keswick now has a park and sale initiative. Yeah. So you can park at the rugby club in Keswick and you get reduced price parking and a reduced launch fare, I think is how it's working. Yeah. So people who are wanting to access Catbells, which obviously is an incredibly popular walk, or the far side of the lake for just, having a picnic and going for a swim, can now use the park and sale initiative, which is hopefully going to reduce the volume of traffic that's trying to come round onto the Catbells side of the lake. But some of it is just about educating visitors and visitors knowing where these different options are. So there is a need for probably a fundamental traffic strategy, which, as I say, I know is being worked on, but there's no quick wins. But also just about people being able to access and find the right information. So if you arrive here having never been here before, how do we signpost visitors to say, look, really you don't want to take your car down there. There is nowhere to put it. You'd be much better parking in Keswick and getting the launch. But it's just we're having to move very, very quickly. We're seeing a volume of visitors in the Lake District this season that is, I think the statistics are 40% or maybe even 50% greater than we've ever seen before. And a lot of these visitors are people that haven't visited the area before because they would have normally holidayed abroad. And obviously due to the COVID restrictions, that's not quite as easy as it is normally.
It's a perfect storm, isn't it? It certainly was last weekend. You had beautiful weather. You had the relaxation of the COVID restrictions. And you also had holiday, foreign holidays were up in the air. People are saying, right, okay, they want us to stay at home, basically. We're going to stay at home. We're going to go to the Lake District. It was kind of inevitable, and I wonder. I can't see it not happening again this weekend, to be honest with you.
Certainly, as a resident of Keswick, I've been out and about today, and people are starting to arrive.
Have you got your tin hat on?
Not quite, but people are starting to arrive, and again, the forecast is relatively good for this weekend. It's currently about 27 degrees in Keswick, and it's going to get to 30 this afternoon. But it might be that the visitors that are coming this weekend are an entirely different set to the ones that were here last weekend. So the ones that were here last weekend worked out clearly that it didn't really work because people will have got parking tickets and that sort of thing. But if we've got an entirely different set coming this weekend, then they don't have any of that prior knowledge. So it's how do we get the message out to people that we really do want to welcome visitors to our beautiful area, and we want people to enjoy it, but we want people to enjoy it in a respectful and considerate manner of both the natural environment, but also the fact that we live and work here. For me at the moment, simple work jobs now take 3 times as long.
Right. Yeah.
It's my job. I have no choice but to do it. But now it takes 3 times as long as it did. Yeah.
What about the argument that it's really good for Keswick's economy and Ambleside's economy that all these people are coming here?
We're almost at the point now where we're too busy.
Right.
You can only turn over so many people, whatever your industry is, whether your industry is accommodation, whether you're food service, whether you're a pub, you can still only serve the amount of people that you can serve. Yeah. So we're not necessarily financially gaining anything more from the additional visitors that we have because we just don't have the capacity. So we're just finding that people are standing in queues and things, which again, when I go on holiday myself personally, you don't want to stand in a queue, particularly not if you've got kids who all they want is an ice cream because they're hot, and it's like, well, yeah, you can have an ice cream in 20 minutes once we've queued for it. Kids don't tend to like that sort of thing. So yes, there are obviously visitors coming here. As I say, the economy is underpinned by tourism, but we're almost at saturation point the visitors probably are not getting the true experience of the Lake District because they presumably just think it's really busy, and we can't up our economy to suddenly start serving 40% more people, particularly not as we're coming out of the other side of the pandemic. Businesses are just readjusting and starting to reopen, and there are, in terms of the national situation, businesses are suffering with the impact of staff having been asked to self-isolate and things. So, as you say, it's a perfect storm. We've got more visitors than we've ever had, better weather than we normally get, businesses that are just trying to adjust to the relaxation of the rules with less staff than they would ever normally have because of the results of track and trace and things like that. So it really is, as you say, the perfect storm.